Joey, thanks for coming. Join us on the Founder Series here today. Thanks for being willing to spend some time with us. You and I have chatted at length in days prior about many topics, from business to faith to personal lives to Columbus and technology consulting. And I think when was it? We first met through a colleague of ours that we both knew.
Brian King.
Yeah. He's a great connector, friend. We've both worked alongside Brian in the past, and we shared a good drink on a summer day outside, right, talking and sharing stories about artwork and music. Your passion as a creative person, I think, was one of the most striking things about my first impression of meeting you, was your love for music and the arts, and how then, you have your hands in a lot. So I was thankful when you agreed to say, come on the show. We'll talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that entrepreneurs face, that consultants encounter in the market. And I really just want to hear what you've been up to. So if you could give me, a brief journey, walk me through, how did you end up where you're at today? What have you been doing? And what were some of those big milestones, either from a career or leadership standpoint, that helped you get where you are today? What are you up to?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you for having me on, talking with you. And
let me pause. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Joey Hendrickson is the director of Sudden Impacts Labs. Is that correct? You're in Columbus, Ohio? And that is a new venture for you, so I'm eager to hear
Super
about
new.
that.
Yeah, it's really fresh. Yep.
But before we get to the Sudden Impact Labs aspect of it, walk us through the path there.
Yeah, so I mean, I was high school student slinging CDs through the hallways out of a backpack and learning about business through the process of selling music. And the most intangible thing there is to sell is just audio, Mm-hmm. So after selling a couple thousand CDs in high school, I decided to go off to business school, and then ended up going on tour with several different artists on Tooth and Nail Records until I got to know 21 Pilots, and then started playing shows a bit with those guys. And then I realized I didn't want to really be a performer. I really wanted to help others, succeed in music and succeed in culture. And so I became a manager of different organizations and different mm-hmm. people to help them succeed on the business side of things. And throughout that process, I kept meeting CEOs and executives and all sorts of workers that loved music and would use music as a tool for their own creativity in their business. And that just naturally led me into consulting my junior year of college. And so I graduated, and I already had a few clients, and I just kept going over the last 12, 13 years now. Yeah.
13 years.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
It's been a journey, and it hasn't been linear. It's been very horizontal and a lot of different things. I didn't get a computer science degree, but ended up working a lot in technology and with technology systems. And so I found myself early on kind of doing more technical marketing work. Mm-hmm. But then I ended up doing surgical robotics at Medtronic and blockchain for PepsiCo and more advanced technology systems back in 2015, 16. That kind of made me feel like I got a good horizon of different things going on. So that led me to basically see how companies deliver consulting projects in technology spaces, and how not only they charge, but they resource them, and made me realize I could do it a lot cheaper for small businesses.
Has that been your focus from the consulting side? Is the small business market? You mentioned some big names. PepsiCo's
Yeah, and I worked for a firm with PepsiCo, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, Sharper Image. But after kind of being in that firm environment, it felt military at times, because I was, you hit 36 cities a year, you work 100 hours a week, they really grinded into you. But the CEO of that firm really mentored me on the process, and he pulled me out of the firm to build our own technology for smart cities and get a patent for that and everything. And so he really guided me forward, and he set me off to kind of go manage the processes of how this all works. And when I was kind of looking back on the United States with some global travels, lived in South America for 6 months recently, and came back to the United States, I was looking for the right small business leaders to work with to provide them tech services to their existing client base.
Okay.
And so that's where Sudden Impact Labs has emerged. Is Craig and Krista over there, just wonderful people. You've met Craig.
Yeah.
They're just amazing.
Love Craig.
And they've been developing relationships for 26 years and providing super quality, like amazing marketing services to clients that actually grow their business. And so they keep getting people coming back to them because they did such a great job on their technical marketing. And so I really encourage them and challenge them to expand into, you're doing technical marketing so well, so why not build the apps? Why not work on the technical systems? Why not? And so we pulled together about 150 developers to go off and do this work.
So the idea there is help tell the world about it in language that the non-technical world understands.
Yeah.
And at the same time, be a partner that can build and deliver the actual thing we're talking about.
Completely. So we're going into existing clients and new clients to solve technical challenges and to do what a technical consulting agency would do. It's just that because of the friendships I've collected and the interesting people I've collected over time, it's probably way more inexpensive than most firms would offer it for.
Since it's vertically integrated across those two functions that they need, but you don't have the telephone game.
And you don't have a ton of expensive consultants kind of going in to assess things. It's more of a, at least on the upfront right now, it's more of a conversation around what can we build for you from a startup mentality, and then going in and providing those services almost like an initial prototyping hustle that kind of creates new solutions, or going and assessing systems and saying, we realize that Accenture might do this or Deloitte might do this, and here's our viewpoint. And if you agree to our viewpoint, let's keep having a conversation to develop it, detail it, but we're going to do all the discovery work for free. We're not going to charge you a huge upfront fee to get into the untying of the knot before we actually build. So let's first untie the knot, design the solution, and once we got the design, we can implement. We charge for the implementation work.
Makes sense. Is that a common entry point then for you, is in that assessment or that sort of fresh perspective on the outside for an existing system or set of systems that maybe the small business owner or mid-tier, they know it needs to change in order to unlock the next phase of growth, or to ensure, maybe it's not profitable to operate that way, or the scale factor, they've outgrown it, or maybe the market has just changed and the technology is not delivering the right set of experiences for their customers that, their product offering requires in order to continue to do business. So you're looking at where they're at, listening to them and saying, again, discovery work's on you to find, can you paint a better future?
Yeah, it's like a think tank kind of conversation. Yeah. And sometimes companies are just so busy and focused on their core, as they should, that, when you start on the marketing side and understanding, which is what Craig and Krista have built over 26 years, they really understand where companies are at on their marketing. And you look at the sales and you say, so many people are coming to your website and they end up calling your sales team, and that's driving your revenue. But have you thought about putting a button inside of a video that people can click on and it immediately adds the product to a shopping cart? And they're like, wow, that would really reduce a lot of time between the customer life cycle.
Friction, right?
Yeah, maybe they just buy what they need. So some simple solutions come out of those conversations that, from a technical standpoint, we can implement interactive video capabilities like that from the buying standpoint. But maybe it's something more deep, and there's a whole product enhancement happening or a product launch happening, and they need not only the marketing to get that product to market, but they might need additional dev resources to come in and help build out features for the product. They might be hung up on a hardware aspect. They need a hardware specialist. And we've got a great guy out of San Francisco that does awesome hardware.
So these are tech-based products with digital software, hardware involved, apps. Is that where the focus is of what the lab is going to tackle?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of at this point, again, after having such you got a whole team on the marketing side, and then after having a breadth of seeing different innovation solutions and different complexities, I love to find new opportunities from a discovery standpoint, but also hear about what people's challenges are, and then immediately think through the encyclopedia of it all and say, let me talk to a few people, or I immediately have a solution for you. And it kind of ends up being, in my mentality, let me find the cheapest way to accomplish the greatest value for you as fast as possible. And I like to put it all together real fast, and then get it back to clients and say, is this what you're thinking? And sometimes it's advisory, but it's like, I love having those conversations, and that's why I steered into this. I want to have as many conversations like that and solve as much as I can as quickly as possible for people.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not playing in that small business arena, you know, on the corporate side, I might get 1 or 2 challenges a year. But on the small business side, or even smaller company side too, sometimes I can pick up 20, 30 challenges a year that I can work on.
What are some of those common challenges that you see small business owners facing as you talk with them, as you meet with them? A lot of them are your friends through your network.
Yeah.
Some of them come in through referrals, but what do you hear is emerging as a commonality across small business owners?
Well, and it's such a wide variety right now, especially these days, and it depends on what you mean by small business too. I mean, I'm usually thinking small business on manufacturing around 500 million.
Okay,
revenue,
it's a moving line, right? So we're less than $1 billion a year. We're less than 1,000 employees, mid-tier small.
But what the manufacturing company is facing is a bit different than what the retailer is facing, of course, you know, and the systems they're using are quite different. And, you know, after working, you know, a lot of my buddies now are at Rockwell Automation. And so you kind of learn about what's cutting edge, and you consider what ABB is doing. You apply it back to a smaller manufacturer and say, are you ready for these types of capabilities? Oh, this is where you're at in terms of maturity. And then you sort of apply solutions based on where they're at. So it really depends on who you're talking to. But when you kind of see enough in the different spaces, you can at least, you know, it's kind of fun to have friends connected across the spectrum and learn from all of them at the same time, while kind of solving different challenges. So maybe the best way to answer that question is, you know, of what do you see customers trying to solve, or what are they trying to create right now? I'd say the most fun projects that I've had to figure out over the last 6 months or so. There's an entrepreneur that owns a lot of real estate, and he also sells a lot of real estate. And he was building a entire Wi-Fi network for a neighborhood as part of a grant process, but also as part of an opportunity for his businesses to grow, and then also other services he can provide from that Wi-Fi network. And he asked me, what can we do to take my Wi-Fi network and provide some sort of solution that supports my real estate business?
Interesting.
And so I thought about it and asked around, and also kind of did my own research, and realized that this is more of a startup hustle mentality, and definitely not necessarily something a company would do, but ended up prototyping a solution where you have a license plate detection reading camera on the road that can actually pick up the license plates of anybody entering his town. And then you associate that with a credit system like TransUnion.
Yeah.
And you're able to like immediately see the emails, names of associated people with that license plate. And what he could do was database information about people entering the town that he owns, and then understand where they might be from and basic demographics, so he can understand whether or not they might be interested in buying real estate or going to an ice cream shop that he owns. And so having this data set, this constantly automated, populated data set of people entering the town, kind of supports this smart city initiative for his little town, but also can support his real estate business if he was to, you know, encourage them to do different types of activities that he sort of manages or knows are great for his experience in his town. And I thought, you know, when I drive into Detroit, why don't I get an email that says, hey, here's all the things to do in Detroit?
Wouldn't that be cool?
Certainly could happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of...
We know they're watching us anyway, so might as well give me something, you know, useful that I can have a better weekend.
And there's the Spam Can Act and everything, so you got to be careful of as a company. But, you know, when you think about the hustle of a small business owner, them trying to solve their own needs, it's like, you know, you could actually make someone's experience in your city so much better if you did have access to certain information about them that's available.
Yeah.
So that was a weird automation project.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's just one example of a small thing that we did, but...
I love your ability to think outside the box and go from a white space, you know, nothing, to here's a problem. You asked me to think about business value and create a potential path forward that, again, is not off the shelf. You can't go buy that solution and plug it into his real estate business today.
Right.
But through your collaboration with the business owner, you might have discovered something that's worth investing in and adds a lot of long-term value to them.
Absolutely. And more on the corporate side, you might not take those types of risks necessarily, right?
Sure.
But it might be, something around right now, I'm still seeing the whole social media world not necessarily being relevant for some products. For other products, it is. For some, it's just not. If you have a manufacturing client come to you and they're trying to, sell their services or sell their more deeper forms of equipment, they're not going to be plugging it on Facebook. So how are they, from a business to business, how are they reaching their clients?
Yeah.
And so when you get into those types of arenas with those types of clients, it really is about improving customer experience and their understanding of the product. And there's pretty amazing capabilities you can do with video right now that makes that whole product exploration not only interactive, but just relevant for understanding what you're buying before you buy it.
Yeah.
And then it really does reduce that life cycle for the business, but also reduces the time for the customer when it comes to buying exactly what they need.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on VR?
Absolutely.
I mean, video obviously grabs our attention over audio, a factor of 10 to 1. They'll watch it instead of listen to it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And the retention rate of if I am learning something by video versus having to learn it by reading in a book or being with someone, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you see the place of VR in the place of learning, connecting with customers, showing them how to use your products, showing them how to,
Yeah. Well,
and is that anything in the space of what, is that a type of project the labs would take on?
I have a buddy who has an entire room of his German Village house devoted to VR.
Really?
And, we talk about it all the time. I think there's a lot of use cases, especially when it comes to training inside of like, if you're going into a 140 degree furnace and you have to do something in a steel mill, having that whole sort of training experience through VR before you go and make that happen. Very important.
High risk, high safety environments that.
Think about American Electric Power and the power lines and how they train for going up on those power lines, and the deaths that happen every year because of lack of training under certain conditions and those types of things, anomalies that can go wrong. VR can simulate those. It's pretty cool. But when most people say VR, I think they also might be thinking about augmented reality, which is not quite that whole virtual experience. And I love recently the examples of culturally murals being painted on buildings that you can actually pull your phone up and then get the whole story.
Wow.
It visually changes on your phone in front of you as you're watching the mural. And I feel like cities can use those types of experiences to get people to go do things, even if it's going fishing at the local lake. Pull up the augmented reality on a mural and then go discover more about the lake that you should go attend and the park that you should go to. And it's helping to drive our experiences when we see those, when we have that interactive element with something. And it's almost like human to human, showing someone that you really care about them finding this when you're using those capabilities.
Yeah.
Which just means a lot more than a sign sometimes.
And just plain facts and info.
Or plain facts and info. Which
scan a QR code. Scan this. Look at this. But just pure information.
Do that whole artistic interactive thing, that creative thing. Sometimes it does pull certain types of demographics into an experience they wouldn't otherwise have.
Do you think that's a connection of your creative talents and your ability to express that in a marketing channel that obviously needs technology to pull it off? Like, you're not going to pull off this AR solution without technology. And it may seem daunting to those that grew up with traditional marketing or traditional advertising channels, forms. Often the medium, would you say the medium is the message in some ways? Could be.
Yeah. I mean, before you even explore the business viability of something, you got to look at where your customers are and who your customer is, which again goes back to the marketing agency aspect of who we want to work with. I wanted to bring these developers into a marketing place because you can build tech for the sake of tech, but if you actually don't understand the customer, sometimes you can build the greatest technology ever, but if it's not relevant to the business case, then you might miss out on you might miss your value.
Yeah.
So when you assess where that customer's at, you kind of realize that even within all the things that I love that are creative and cultural and things, sometimes you got to just look at where the customer is, consider that the website is driving your sales, and how do we enhance it with the myriad of technical capabilities we have today. And have you seen how this works? Here's a use case or a case study of how this actually works on your website. Does that align to your customer persona and your segments that you're targeting right now with Google advertising? How does it all fit together with this technical capability? It all comes back to a business sense at the end of the day, but when you're armed with those technical capabilities, a small business that you didn't know existed, or even as a middle-sized company that you were too busy to notice that capability that isn't just hyped and trending, but could actually add value to you.
Yeah.
You know, my hope is that we have the conversations and deliver that value to people who are ready for it.
And sometimes that's out of reach for the small business sector.
It can be.
You know, they think it's got to be millions and seven figures of investment to make headway. It seems daunting and nebulous. And, you know, with Sudden Impact Labs being able to pull together their perspective across big enterprise, small business, and be able to guide the owner of where to direct their investment for the biggest return on that technology and use, and when and where to use technology. Otherwise, it just becomes a black hole very easily of spending dollars that don't create very short-term immediate value and traction back on the customer side.
Completely. I think it is daunting sometimes to think, like, in order to have this capability, I have to hire someone very expensive to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's where advancement is fun, is because people get scrappier. We get scrappier at delivering. And, you know, for me, I could work inside those agencies, you know, today, but you know, especially in this moment, I'm just like, actually, we have all the resources, we need to put it together. And I really enjoy working with the mentality of smaller businesses or companies that I've found through Sudden Impact marketing world, because they choose to work with great clients.
Yeah.
And so you end up working with a lot of people that become your heroes on projects, and you meet a lot of fascinating individuals that really care about their business. And that whole vibe is what I like to stay in as a creator on technology side, but also in business in general. I like to create value with people that we kind of treat each other back and forth with this explorative mindset that generates new wealth of all forms, really.
We were just discussing the role of community, like-minded leaders, the people that we go through life with, the people we build companies with, whether that's as a freelance consultant in the context of a larger enterprise where you're a small team, a small unit. Having that identity of this is who we, you know, drive down the lane with is really important. And as you know, you've shared many stories with me before about people who have impacted you, either mentors, coaches, family members. When you think about the topic of leadership, who stands out in your mind as having a big impact on Joey Hendrickson?
I've been blessed to be surrounded by like a whole group of people throughout my life that have been driving me, not only in terms of value, but in terms of values. And then I'm not even sure why I was blessed like that some days. I mean, I just don't even know why those people showed up. I got lucky, I think. Lucky to be brought in this world by my father, who's, you know, international business throughout his career, but also just loves my mom like crazy. And, you know, married over 40 years and still going.
That's neat. Very neat.
It's special. So he's kind of always he's in my camp. And
he's a big fan of yours.
I'm a big fan of his too, but he'll continue to see me take on uncles, you know, and a guy named George Young, who grew up in a small town in Ohio and grew a consulting firm to 400 of them, wildly creative people that did a lot of the innovation work that I got to work with. And he was a special mentor to me as well. He has a dual personality. He has his creative side, and then he has his business side. And he's the senior general partner of Rockwell now, and sold his business multiple times after being a partner at Deloitte. He's done all these things throughout his life, and he kind of showed me that you can do it all, you know, and stay weird and stay who you are. So that's
and not sell out,
and not sell
who
out.
You are,
who you are, yeah. And then I also got really inspired by the Walton family when I spent time with them in their world, because you realize that at that point, we're not living for money. They're not even living for money. They're trying to create enjoyment. And when that's the pursuit, eudaimonistic enjoyment is the pursuit, you kind of realize that the things that you create throughout your life, you're living with so much wealth and opportunity when you're creating things that others enjoy and that you enjoy. And just that creating of enjoyment inside of companies, outside of companies, inside of families, outside of families. And if enjoyment ends up being the pursuit for why we are creating and building, to help others enjoy life, to help ourselves enjoy life, it's a whole different dynamic than kind of what we're told, I think, at times when it comes to get more of this or get more of that.
It's not probably articulated very clearly in the capitalist mindset.
No.
Of pursuing profits and the reason for a business's existence, existential, why does this thing need to exist in the world? And I'm not saying it's not there in any of the writings, but what has been handed down to us,
yeah,
the Cliff Notes version of capitalism seems to be lacking in some ways, that message.
Exactly.
Until you meet someone like that, like their family.
And you would think that they would have it all based on the standards of capitalism, but actually what they're trying to do still is program and support and create enjoyment in their lives and in society. That's really all they're living for at this point. Mm-hmm. And they want more solutions for enjoyment. And so when you really wake up in the morning, you're like, how do I help my customers enjoy their lives? How do I help my friends enjoy their lives? How do I help my family enjoy their lives? The money's going to follow. You don't have to worry about it if you're creating enjoyable things. Yeah. But so is the culture, and so is the social aspects, you know?
Well, I inspired by the work that you're doing on the creative side, the technical side. We didn't get time to talk about some of your short form documentary work when you went to South America and you're uncovering beautiful creators. And I know that's just sort of part of who you are, and you can do it in your sleep, and you'll probably film everywhere you go for the rest of your life in some capacity or not. You're a great storyteller, and your story itself is inspiring to a lot of people who know you. So keep being you, keep doing what you enjoy most, let others do the rest. And if there's any way that I can help you or the Sudden Impact Labs team as you guys charge ahead with your vision, please reach out anytime. And thank you for spending your afternoon with us.